this conflict. It's not in the best interest of America. So most of the Congress supports Ukraine, even the Republican members of this administration. I think because they're not motivated by moral principles, I think they don't know what to do on this.
Also, according to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's administration is considering to impose sanctions against Russia. Do you have any kind of expectations that this decision would be made by Trump and his team?
Well, of course they should. And he's been talking about it for months. He said 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, and they never do it. I don't know what they're waiting on. So I think that I have to say, unfortunately, and for me it's embarrassing that I have no confidence that this administration is actually going to do it. Now, the Senate has put together a very, very strong sanctions package. And I saw today that the Speaker of the House, Mr. Johnson, says that many members of the Congress support it also. So what are they waiting on? I mean, they have enough that they could do it without the president, but I think that the Republican leadership would prefer to have the president, give the go-ahead to do this. And maybe he will. I mean, I'll be very happy to say that I was wrong if he does come out and say that they're going to do it. And you would think he would, because the Russians have mocked him. They've shown they have zero respect for this administration. So I don't know why he is not using all the leverage that he has.
Also, Ukraine has participated in another round of negotiations with the Russian team in Istanbul. However, Russia demanded unrealistic concessions from Ukraine. According to their so-called memorandum, they demanded full withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from its own 4 regions and also other unrealistic concessions from Ukraine. Do these negotiations have any kind of sense?
I have to say I'm impressed with the patience and the tolerance of the Ukrainian side to put up with this vulgar nonsense and these demands. I don't think anybody in Ukraine is surprised by the Russian approach. But I have confidence that the Ukrainian government knows how to do this, and if it's worthwhile to keep sending a team there to keep the door open or whatever, or to make sure that nobody in Europe or the United States would say that Ukraine is not interested in negotiation. But that the maximalist position the Russians came in on Monday, not a surprise. I suspect if it helps Ukraine get back any children and any wounded prisoners, maybe that's worthwhile.
Let's cover also Russia's war aims. According to Bloomberg, Vladimir Putin is confident that his army will be able to break through Ukrainian defense lines and capture the whole 4 regions of Ukraine until the end of this year, according to Bloomberg's sources close to Kremlin. Do you believe in that, and what are their chances to do so?
Yeah, I don't see that as a likely outcome. Of course, it's possible, and because Russia is willing to just keep feeding people into the fight, and they don't care about their own casualties, it's conceivable that they could keep trying to overwhelm Ukrainian defenders. But I don't see that happening. Assuming that Ukraine is able to continue to grow its own defense industry, and assuming that other countries continue to provide some support to Ukraine, even without the United States, then I think that it's hard to imagine a breakthrough. I mean, Russia does not have, as far as I can tell, they don't have the mobile forces, the capability that can do that. And because of the overwhelming numbers of drones that are out there, it's very difficult for anybody to move within 20 kilometers of the front line. So you couldn't you'd have difficulty massing a force, even if you had it, to be able to break through and go somewhere. So it seems to me that what we're seeing now is what we're going to see for the rest of the year, unless something dramatic happens from the outside.
And also, do you believe that they can cross the Dnipro River? Because Putin seems to believe in that. If you want to take the city of Kherson, you have to cross this maritime obstacles at Dnipro River. What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, I think the Russians have shown they do not have the capability to conduct an effective river crossing. Every time they've tried, they've been crushed. So I almost hope they try again because the Ukrainians know exactly where they would come. They would be very vulnerable to any kind of drones. I mean, I just don't see it happening. Not at least not in the traditional sense. I mean, maybe there's a way to do certain things, and I'm not prepared to say that the Russians are too dumb to do it. I just don't see them having the capability to be able to do that. It's hard to imagine that.
Also, Vladimir Putin has ordered to create so-called buffer zone along the border with Ukraine. Russians have launched offensive inside the Sumy region. However, they have been halted. This offensive has been halted by the Ukrainian armed forces. What is your assessment of this battle inside the Sumy region of Ukraine?
If as the lines become stabilized, then I think it just becomes, as Ukraine continues to develop more and more long-range capabilities, you start hitting Russian headquarters, you hit Russian logistics, you hit Russian artillery and rocket launchers. So this so-called buffer zone will be a shell, will be hollow if the Ukrainians are able to destroy those kinds of targets. That's how you neutralize Russia's only advantage of mass. Plus, I think that Ukrainian special forces and Ukrainian intelligence are just operating at a different level than what the Russians are able to do. I mean, they're like, different capability, innovation, and Russia from the beginning has proved to me that they cannot defend themselves. I mean, the Kursk operation last year, Ukraine crossed that border with no problem. What Ukraine has done going after Russian oil and gas infrastructure, the Russian general that was killed out in the outskirts of Moscow a couple of months ago by an exploding e-scooter. I mean, this is an amazing level of penetration that's as good as or better than what the Mossad did with the famous pager attack on the Hezbollah. I mean, Ukraine is, that's where the Ukrainians are.
And do you feel that Ukraine would be able to turn the tide in this war in the nearest future?
As much as I want that, I don't see that happening unless there is some significant change externally. Whether that's in the form of delivery of significant amounts of new capabilities, or real economic pressure on Russia. The stopping of the so-called shadow fleet vessels coming out of the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea, and more destruction of the Russian oil and gas infrastructure, so that they can no longer make the money that they need from sales to India and China. I mean, that would be real pressure. But it's going to take something like those two things: real significant quantity and quality of external support and real economic pressure will be what turns the tide finally, I think. Now, of course, nobody knows exactly what's going on inside Russia. I mean, it's not a transparent society. I would never rule out the possibility of something happening inside the regime. We'll see. But I'm not assuming that's going to happen anytime soon.
Thank you, General HODGES, for your time and for your support for Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Heroam Slava. Thank you, Daniel.
You just mentioned about the position of US President Donald Trump.